All right, we are on Daf Lamed Vav, Amud Aleph and Sukkah, top of the page. Nizdak Nikev, we're talking about Psulim in an Esrog. Let's go. Nizdak and Nikev. Nizdak, it was cracked all the way. Nikev means it has a hole in it. And it's chaser because of the hole. It's missing something because of the hole. So Tani Ula Bar Chanina. Nikev Nekev Mefulash. If it has a hole that goes through and through, it goes from one end to the other. That means you took a needle and you stuck a needle straight through the esrog. Okay, and it's coming out the other side now. So then it's b'mashu. Even if it's a little hole will pass the whole esrog. If it goes through and through. If it's v'she'enim mefulish, but if it doesn't go through and through, then it needs to be the size of an iser. So I have no idea how big that coin is, but it's the size of an iser. Okay. Now, this is even if it's not missing anything. Even if the hole, in a case where it was mafulish, it goes through and through, even if the esrog is not missing anything. It just pushed. Yeah, you push a needle through, and nothing is missing. If it goes through and through, it's possible. If you take a block of wood and you push it, the size of an isser, you take an isser coin and you indent it, right, into the esrog. Even if nothing's missing, it's still going to be puzzle. But if the esrog is missing a mashu, it's going to be puzzle. So here we're talking about a scenario where it's not missing, but it still has a hole or an indentation in the esrog. Okay. Bayra. Nodu the esrog simane treifa mahu. If an esrog has simanim that would make an animal a treifa, so what's the halacha? Well, the Gemara is like, well, what are you talking about, Rav? My kami baileh. Niklef. If you're talking about niklef, it's peeled. So, and that could be a sign of that. That could be a siman treifa by an animal. Well, Tanina, that was in the Mishnah. We already spoke about that. Nistak, if it's cracked, so that's also Tanina. Nikev, if it has a hole, Tanina, we learned about that too. So what's your shaila? Which siman of a treifa could you have by both that we haven't yet discussed? Says the Gemara, Kidu'ula. Kikami Baile Kidu'ula. Amr B'Yochanan. And the shaila is like this. Areya shenishtafcha kikitain. Areya is a lung. So if you have a lung that is it dissolved, the insides of the flesh of the lung dissolved, and it could be neshefach. You could pour it like water. But that's the shaila. So the similarity would be if you're inside of the esrog, the outside looks great, but the inside is all mushy. Right? So what would that be? So the Gemara says like this. But Amar Rav spoke of it, said on that case of a ray on the lung, V'hu dekaima sipunaha. That's the only time that will be kosher is if the bronchia are still intact. So the bronchia are still intact, but the rest of it dissolved. And we say that that's kosher. Holoi kami sipunaha, then it's a treifa. So hachamai, what's the halach when it comes to an esrog? Dilma hasam hu delay shalad ba'avira hadabarya. Over there by an animal where there's no air getting in because it's enclosed. So there, perhaps it will, as long as these bronchia are still there, so maybe it can regenerate or it can heal itself. Aval hacha desha be'avira sruche misrachas. But in the case by the esrog where there is air, so then maybe it's just spoiled. And it's done. Or maybe not. Maybe since they're still here, you have the cavities where the seeds go. Maybe that's like the symponia, and maybe therefore it should be kosher. So we weren't sure if the reason why symponia are ma'akiv is because it will be hadar barya. Maybe that's enough of it. That's still good enough. So that was his shaila by esrog. So we're talking about a case where an esrog is the inside of the esrog is nisrach, is spoiled, or it's liquidy. So is that going to be kosher or not? That was Rava's question. So Gemara brings it right.
It's not going to grow anymore. Was the animal a heel, right?
Right. Well, that's the Shayla Gemara. Well, we're not. It's not Mechuber. So you have. It's the first day Yantif. You're ready to shake off. Tashma. So where brings your raya? We have a brayse that goes. Let's look at this. Esrog tafuach, seruach, kavush, shalok, kushi, lavan, menumar. Possible. Tafuach is swelled. Seruach is spoiled or decayed, rotted. Kavush is cooked at a high temperature for a while. Kavush is it's usually pickled. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Kavush is pickled. Kavush Rashi is bechemetz. It's pickled in vinegar, or chardal is mustard or something sharp. So it's pickled. If your esrog is pickled, shalok is something that's cooked a lot. That's shlokas. Like a vegetable soup is called shlokas. Rashi says it's cooked on high heat. It's cooked and boiled in water. That's called shalok. So all those scenarios of an esrog are going to be puzzle, as well as kushi, which we learned about already, is a black esrog. Lavan is a white esrog. Menumar is a spotted esrog. All those cases are puzzle. Now, and it continues, esrog kekadar, an esrog that's round like a ball. If you weren't sure what a kadar is, the tesis on the bottom, the second to last tesis tells you, it's shaped like a leather ball, like the girls play with. All right, just saying. And others say, apatiyum, an esrog that's a twin, or more like a Siamese esrog, that they're co-joined. You have two esrog that are joined together. Esrog habaiser, you have a very small, it's unripe. Beiser is unripe. Rabbi Akiva paisel v'chacham machshir. Gadlei b'tfus, if you grew it in a form, v'aso kamin beria acheres, and now it looks like a different shape. Doesn't look like an esrog anymore. Puzzle. Those scenarios, that's also going to be puzzle. Gadlei b'tfus means when it's it just sprouted, so you put something over it, then it'll fill into the shape that whatever you put it in. So if you make it look like an elephant or square maybe, that would not be good. Okay, that's the end of the brisa. But what do we want from this brisa? And again, to our Gemara, our shaila of the decayed inside of an esrog. Ketanimius, the brisa mentioned tafuach saruach. So what are those cases? My lad, tafuach mi bachutz, if it's swelled on the outside, or if it's saruach mi bifnim, or if it's decayed on the inside. And that's great. So we have a raya that if it decays on the inside or rots on the inside, so that will be puzzle, not like the case of a decayed lung, where if the bronchi are still there, it'll be kosher. So you wouldn't have that same halacha. It would be different by a esrog. That's the Gemara. That's the raya the Gemara brings. And when it says lai, it's not a good raya. Why not? Because it's possible to learn that both tafuach and saruach are talking about the outside of the esrog. How so? V'loi kasha had tafach, in a case where it's swelled avagav deloi sarach, even if it didn't rot. Had sarach avagav deloi tafach. And or you could be talking about a different type of esrog where it's starting to decay, but even though it did not swell. Okay, so therefore you have no raya. Meaning the question is, again, our question is that if it looks good on the outside, but it's not good on the inside, is that going to be kosher or possible? So we don't have an answer to the question. And we go on. Says the Gemara, Amar, esrog kushi pasul. And now we're just going to go through the brisa case by case, or some cases. Esrog kushi is pasul. In fact, the Gemara v'atanya kushi kosher. Daimla kushi pasul. We learned in the Brisa. The Brisa says that a kushi, it means a black esrog, is going to be kosher. And if it's daimla kushi, if it looks like an esrog kushi, then it's pasul. So how do you understand that Brisa? Amar Abaya, hitnan nami masnisin daimla kushi tnan. You're right. The Brisa, when it's saying that it was pasul, it's talking about a scenario where it's daimla kushi, not an actual esrog kushi. Daimel Kushi means that it grew here, but it's dark. Meaning, Rashi, if you remember on the Mishnah where we talked about an Eser Kushi, so Rashi says it came from Eretz Kush and it's dark. That's an Eser Kushi. Go ahead, Shlomo. You guys can take it. Shkoyach, Shkoyach. You sit and listen to the shit because you can learn something else. Okay, whoever's on Zoom, we just got cholent. If you come in, you get you some cholent.
Thank you. Simone Farber.
What?
It's Simone.
Oh, Shimon. Okay, Shimon. So I hope you're eating some cholent too.
Yes.
Okay, so Abaye says that if it's daimel kushi, means it grew here, it grew locally, but it's black. That's puzzle. Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah. I'm sorry, daimel kushi Tanan. Rava Amar Leikasha. A different answer. Halan halahu. It could be talking about a real esrog. We're talking about a kushi esrog. But it depends on where you are. If you're in a place where an Esser Kushi is normal, so that would be fine. But if you're in a place like in Eretz Yisrael, where you usually grow green esrogim or yellow esrogim, so then an Esser Kushi is no good. But Rashi says something interesting, which the Rashash is bothered about. Rashi sounds like he didn't have the geography correct. If you look at the Rashi, Holan Holahu, Lun generally refers to us, meaning the Bnei Bavel, because Rashi is the second wide line on the bottom. Holan Holahu. It says la'olam masnisin kushi nami pasal. Our Mishnah would also pasal a kushi. V'leikasha masnisin l'bnei Eretz Yisrael sherachokin me'eretz kush. The Mishnah that says that it's pasal is talking to the bnei Eretz Yisrael that are far away from Eretz Kush. Ve'enam regilon behem and don't normally see them. The Brisa is discussing bnei Bavel shekreivim l'kush. That's closer to Kush. V'regilim ben, and therefore used to them. They're used to them. We call Malkan the Gadol kind of daimel kushi nidmahu upasal. So according to Rava, everybody agrees if it's nidma, that means if it's grown in a place where they're not normally black, then it's going to be puzzle. The reason is because that's like it's mishuna. It's strange, and the lashon of the Rambam is. There's no greater soul than being strange or being different. So that's the soul of that's if it's in there. But if you're in a place where you usually have black esrogim, so then there's nothing wrong with the black esrogim. Now, so the geography here, the Rashash points out, is that Eretz Yisrael is closer to Kush, which I presume would be Ethiopia, than Babel is Iraq. Yeah, Turkey, somewhere over there. So the Yavit says that could be there's another place that was called Kush that was further. What?
The mountains above
are called Kush? Oh, amazing. Okay. They were okay. They're called Kush. What are they called? Oh, like there's a place called. What's it called? Kush. What's it? Kushtan. The Kush. Kushtan. Kush. No. Kushtat. What's Kushtat? Kushtan. I don't know. All right. Anyway, maybe that's what it's referring to. Great. Okay. It's like the Maravaiter. Esrog haboiser. An esrog which is unripe. It's small, unripe esrog. Rabbi Akiva paisal machshirim. Machlekes Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. So says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon, Amar Davrecha. The Chayra, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon have the same opinion. How so? Rabbi Akiva had the Amran. That's what we mentioned. Why does Rabbi Akiva say that boister is no good? Because he understands that until it's finished growing, until it's ripe, it's not considered a fruit. It's you don't call something a fruit until it's ripe. Before that, it's not really a fruit, and the Chacham would disagree. So we find Rabbi Shimon says a similar idea. Says the Gemara. The Reb Shimon Mai, the Tanan, Reb Shimon Poiter Esrogim Bekutnan. He's referring to Meiser. And he says if you have an esrog that hasn't grown fully yet, it's cut none, it's still small, then it's potter from Meiser. Why would you exempt it from Meiser? It grow, it's a produce, because he holds that until something ripens, it's not considered a fruit. And therefore it's not chayiv and Meiser. So Rabbi says, oh look, Rabbi Akiva and Reb Shimon hold the same thing. Abaye doesn't like that. He says, maybe not. Damalahi. Arkam like Rabbi Akiva Hachad Bein and Hadar. Maybe Rabbi Akiva really does hold it's a fruit, but he just holds it's not Hadar. And here you need a fruit to be Hadar. Aval Hasam. Could be he holds that it's considered you'd be Chayv in Meiser. Inami. Rabbi says I can learn the other way also. I could add come like Reb Shimon and Hazam. Maybe Reb Shimon only said it's not Chayv in Meisers. The Chsev Aser to Aser Tevu Azarecha. And what drasha is, Kederach Shimon Adam might see in Lazriya. The only fruit you're chayiv on is a fruit that you'd be able to replant. If you can't replant it and grow something from it, then that's not a fruit that you're chayiv in Meiserin. And something which is too small and is not ripe, it won't grow. Avol hacha k'Rabbanan, but maybe over here he would agree with the Rabbanan that an esrog abayser would not be good. Vesu lemidi, and that's it. I don't want to hear more. I don't want to hear anything else. That's it. This is not a good sushal, Rabba. Vesu lemidi says ein lo denachad davar zed le'savar Reb Shimon Rabbi Akiva, Reb Akiva savar Reb Shimon. They don't hold of each other. You have no raya. You have no right to say that one would hold of the other shita. Okay. God lebitfos. The Brisa said that if it grew in a form, v'aso kamin briacheres pasal. So as you heard those words, you're thinking, okay, well, what if I put it in a form and it still looks like an esrog? But if it looks the same, then it's kasher. Much as pshita. Why shouldn't it? Says the Gemara, kamin beria acheres. I'm sorry, leitzricha. I'm sorry, pshita. Kamin beria acheres. The Mishnah said it. It's like we learned that's what the Brisa said. The Gemara is leitzricha dapi. You made it. It doesn't look exactly like a regular esrog. Here Rashi says it looks like like the wheel of a water mill. You can picture one of those things that turn in the water. It's got lots of dapim. It's got lots of. It looks like shells coming out of the esrog, like those big wheels, right? So that's what the esrog looked like. It looked like it was like indentations, like little, like it looked like one of those wheels that you could spin. And it's got flat pieces. That was the form that he used. Now, I was thinking, well, why can't you get like the perfect esrog form and then grow esrogim like that? You didn't make a cut like you think, right? I guess it wasn't. I can't imagine I haven't thought about it, but I guess it would. I imagine it'd be very tedious, and you have to make something you'd be able to cut off without it.
Do it every single one of the tree. And
do it on every one and have it perfect, unless it doesn't grow all the way in. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder. All right, that was my thought. Okay. Itmar. We learned in a member. Esrog shenakvuhu achbarim. An esrog that the mice were nibbling at. So they made holes in it. They nibbled at it. So Amar Rav, ein zahadar. Rav says that's not hadar. Not very nice. Versus Eini, really? Rabbi Chanina would eat. He would dip his esrog in a little, I don't know what exactly, maybe some brown sugar, and he would eat it, and then he would go and shake a little esrog. He would use it. So the Gemara is like, 1 second. Well, 1 second. How can Rabbi Chanina do that? The Mishnah says that if it's chaser, even a kol shu, it's possible. Whereas Bishlam masisin Rabbi Chanina lakasha. Kam b'yamtiv rishon, kam b'yamtiv sheni. The Mishnah Rabbi Chanina would learn is only talking about yamtiv rishon. The din that you need to have, that you can't have a chaser, can't be missing, is learned from lakach tama. Needs to be a lakicha tama. Needs to be a complete take. That is lakach tam l'chem b'yam rishon. That's only on the first day. But on the rest of the days of Yom Tov, it's allowed to be chaser. It has to be hadar all 7 days. But to be chaser is only the first day. So that's how Rabbi Chanina would answer. Ala Rav kasha. But according to Rav, who says the psul is hadar, so then it wouldn't be hadar. But he said ein zahadar. So what's the kasha? El Rav that says not hadar. So then kasha Rabbi Chanina, meaning then Rabbi Chanina is shver. Meaning Rabbi Chanina could learn that the psul is chaser, and therefore he wouldn't have an issue. But according to Rav, who sounds like he's learning that the psul is hadar, then that should be puzzle all 7 days. Rabbi Chanina said it was only puzzle the first day. So he answered, Amar Lacha, Shani Achbarim Dimi Isi. All right, it's not an issue of Hadar, it's just Mos. Okay. Zak Gemara weiter. Ikeda Amr, other said it the other way. Amr Rav Zehadar. Dar Chanina Matal Benafik. This is it's not an issue. It's Hadar because you see Reb Chanina would use it. Reb Chanina Kashimasi. So like Kasha Kavan Division can be out of Shady. Okay. Esrog Katan. If you have a small esrog, so this is back on our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we brought a machlekes by a small esrog. It could be the size of an egoiz or a kebetza. So Amar Rafim Bar Papa, Kim machlekes kan kach machlekes ba'avonim mikur zolis. The same machlekes we have by esrog, you would have the same machlekes by sharp or rounded stones that were used for the restroom. The time like in Shabbos. The Tanya B'Shabbos Gimel Avanim Makrozol is Mutar Lahachnas LeBeis HaKisei. Chazal were makel, according to Rashi, to carry something Dalad Amis in a Carmelis, an area which you're not allowed to carry midrabanan. They were makel mishum kavod abrius. They were on goyis mishum kavod abrius. To take 3 stones, and what size? Kameshiur and Reb Meir Eimer Ke'egos, Reb Yehuda Eimer Ke'beitza. So the same machlokes you have by an esrog, you have by by these stones. Now Rashi learns that these are the maximum size by the Beis HaKisei, and even though by esrog they're the minimum size. So that's what comes out according to the way Rashi is learning. I think it was Archlan didn't really like that. And he didn't got the whole why do you have to do this? Like why do we have to make this similar? So he said Lule Rashi. He would have said that it's teaching you fakir. It's teaching you that these are also it's telling you the same way over here. They're arguing, and it's the minimum size. So too on Shabbos they're also arguing about what the minimum size is. But for sure you could use larger, just like by an esrog you could use larger. That's what he wanted to say the Tushel is about. Okay.
Cool.
Correct. Correct. Tessa says a shtickle. Rashi here learned that the Beis HaKisei was an open field, and the heter was moving the Alaram and Rosh Rab. Tessa didn't like that. He said, first of all, it's called the Beis HaKisei. It sounds like it's a room. It sounds like it had mechitzas. And he brings lots of cases. It sounds like in lots of Gemaras that these areas were fenced off. That the Gemara talks about it being a yichud issue with women in the Beis HaKisei, so they allowed to talk to each other in the Beis HaKisei. And he says it sounds like there were mechitzas up, and which is a bigger heter because then we're being matri not just Dalad Amis and a Karmelis, but to go from a Karmelis into Rosh Hashanah. But there's also an issue of. I'm sorry. Right. And the president points out that you don't the Gemara doesn't mention the heter of Dalamis and Shisra, the Karmelis or being machnas from the Karmelis into the Rosh Hashanah. It doesn't mention that because muktzah is a bigger isser than carrying a Rosh Hashanah. And that's why, and therefore, the stress here in the Gemara is that they were matter you carrying stones, which that's a marmuktzah for kavod abrius.
Why the muktzah? They have a use for that purpose.
But you have to designate it before a Shabbos. I don't think you reuse stones. So maybe if the guy designated stones before Shabbos was Seder, but here was the assumption is that you didn't designate them. You just found a couple stones and you carried them to the Beis HaKisei. Okay. Zok to Marvaiter. Tanya. How big was it? What was the maximum? So one sheet said Kadesh that you have 2 in one hand. The other one says even 1 in 2 hands. Tanya, Rabbi Yossi, Ma'aser Rabbi Akiva, Shabbat Beis HaKnesses. Rabbi Akiva came to shul. The esrog al ksefai. He had a huge esrog. It was on his shoulder. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So you see, so he's bringing a raya that you see that you can have a very big esrog. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Misham raya. You can bring me a raya from there. Abheim Amrullah Ein Zahadar. They also told him that it wasn't Hadar. They weren't so impressed with it. Now the problem is that Rabbi Yehuda's issue was not because it wasn't Hadar. He said because the Rabbi Yehuda's issue was that maybe it's going to fall, right? So you tell me that they were telling me it's not hadar. So Rashi says ain't zahadar. Rashi right before the Mishnah. Avagav the ukimna. The time they reviewed the law Mishnah hadaru. Hachika amrulay. This is what they were saying to him. Afil l'ditcha the leichayishta lan pulay. Umay says raya mit Rabbi Akiva ain't a raya. Even according to you, you're not concerned that it's going to fall and you're bringing me a raya from Rabbi Akiva. They told him that it's not hadar. So it's like I'm telling you that you should be concerned that it's going to fall. And they, even if you're not concerned for that, but it should be, then it should definitely should not consider it hadar. Okay. Zok the Mishnah. Ein oigdin es a little elamina. We had lots of different halachas of hadar. Right. When something is not hadar, and what's the positives? That's interesting. We haven't seen. I don't think so. Something that.
What's a nice answer?
Yeah. So if you ask a paisuk will tell you answer that most conforms to what the Shulchan Aruch writes. That's a priyetz hadar. And I remember asking a Rebbe of mine in Kultera, Rabbi Wolpin, so he used to tell me that every time I brought him a esrog, he would say, he should ask the other Rebbe, he's a paisik. He said, you should ask him. He said, I forgot who he told me from. There was one Rosh Hashiva he'd show the esrog to his wife and say, do you like the way it looks? And if she said it was nice, they said, oh, now it's hadar. It has to be. That Berkowitz says, he says, if to you it doesn't look nice, then there's no way it could be hadar. Chazal also told you things that it has to be, but if it also has to look good, it has to look nice. So I don't know. That's already tam berech. But it's a good point. The Gemara doesn't describe it in a positive. Doesn't tell you the tzura and the gidol and the shape. We haven't seen any of that yet. All right. Ein oigdin es a lulav el b'minoi. You have to tie up your lulav with material, a lulav material. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, because he holds that again is part of the mitzvah. Reb Meir, even a string you can use. Reb Meir, Ma'asen Amrei says, listen, remember the Anchi Yerushalayim, they would wrap up their lulav with gold. Wow. That was just for show, but underneath they would tie it with lulav, with minay. Okay. Amrav. So the Gemara. You can use even the stuff that grows around the decal, a palm tree, would also be okay. V'amarav, in my time in Rabbi Yehuda, what's pshat in Rabbi Yehuda? Why does he say you have to use minay? Because kasaver lulav tzarech eged. He holds it's a requirement. You must tie the lulav up. The imaisi minachrina. If you're going to bring another min, having chamisha mini, then you're going to have 5 minim, and that would be a problem with Baal Taisif, of adding onto the mitzvah. How do I know that this sieve and ikra the dikla that go around the tree are considered part of the lulav? The Tanya have a brayse that says, "Basukah teishu sukkah shall call over." Divrei Meir. Meir says your sukkah can be made out of anything. Divrei Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer ain't sukkah nehegas el b'dalad minim shabalulav. Your sukkah needs to be made out of the dalad minim. V'hu v'hadin noisim, and he makes a kal v'chaymer. Ma lulav she'einaig beleilis kibayamim. Malach lulav, which is noiheg only by day, not by night. You can't take lulav. There's no mitzvah of lulav at night. And that's a kula, but it has a chumrah that it needs to have dalad minim. You can only take the dalad minim. So sukkah shenehegas beleilos kibayamim, where it has a chumrah. It's more chamer, and it's not by both day and by night. So so then it should also be only with the adal minim. If the lulav, which is kal, because it's only by day, has a chumrah that it's the dalad minim, you can only take these 4. So sukkah, which is chamer, because you have to do it by day and by night, certainly it should only be done with these dalad minim. Amrulai, they said to him, Kol din she'atadan tchilase lahachmir, v'seife lahakel einay din. Any kal v'chemer which ends up making a kula is not a good kal v'chemer. And over here, it's going to end up being a kula because loy matzah arba minim. What happens if you don't have the arba minim, or you can't find the arba minim to make a sukkah out of? So then, what are you going to do? You're going to say that you're going to be patel from sukkah. Yoshev patel bateru am b'sukkahs teishu. And Terry says you should sit in sukkahs. Shiva shivzem sukkah shel kol davar. So therefore, it's a sukkah made out of anything. B'chein be'Ezra tabala mazayin amar aleph. Similarly, in Ezra it says suah go out to the mountain. Ve'hebiu ali zayis, bring olive branches. Ve'ali ate shemen. Ve'ali hadas. Ve'ali tamar. Ve'ali ate zavos. Ve'asu sukkahs, and make sukkahs.
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Why do you have a if you have a...
Well, that's a kind. No, Rabbi Yehuda was going to make the kal v'chemer, right? Rabbi Yehuda, what does he do? Saver hanilu defanis. This is coming for the walls. Ali hadas, vali tamarim, vali eitz avos l'schach. Okay, we'll have to continue with this Mirz Hashem tomorrow. Okay, shkayach. I'm going to be away. On tomorrow we don't learn on Shabbos. Rabbi Focal Friday I'll be away, but Bez Hashem I will post a video for Sunday. So you have a video for Friday and for Sunday. Shimon, have a good Shabbos.
Anyway, those Shabbos?